These haikus come from a book that was published in 2014 as a World War I commemoration that meant 1 century after the beginning of the First World War. There were over, they said, 1,200 haikus that were sent when they tried to put together haikus about peace. And that came from very different parts of the world. You know that young men from 5 continents came at that time. They came here to fight and gave their lives. And there were 100 haikus that were kept to put in that book. And the nice thing about it is that they are in 4 languages. The language of the haiku writer who made the haiku, and also translations in 3 other languages, which makes it available for many, many people. It was a difficult choice for myself to find which one I would keep. I couldn't go around. I started with 1 out of 100. I took only 15, and then I said, no, that's too many. I'll keep just shorten this to 5 only. But of course, it's my choice. But what I'll do is send the book to Joe. So if anybody wants to go more in detail into these haikus, you can. So here are the 5 that I kept. Excuse me. The first one. Memorial. We pray for the shot, then for the firing squad. Second one. Roaring waves can't disturb the peace of the rocks. I repeat it. Roaring waves can't disturb the peace of the rocks. Third one. Why do I never see peace correspondence on TV? We all hear about war correspondence, but not peace correspondence. The fourth one. Black hands, white hands, so close, weaving a friendship bracelet. I repeat that one too. Black hands, white hands, so close, weaving a friendship bracelet. And the last one, to go with a bit of humor, getting on so well now that they are nearly deaf, the old man and his wife. Getting on so well now that they are nearly deaf, the old man and wife. So these are parts, like I said, from 100 haikus. 100 haikus pour la paix. You can see that. And it's a book for peace, of course. Well, let's get to the main subject. It's my own life made, like I said, of war and peace. The opposite of peace is usually named war, conflict, or fight. When I made an attempt to find out what was my personal experience on this topic, I realized that most of my life was rather led by war, conflict, and fighting than by peace. For a long time, I thought I was peaceful, but then I was dreaming violent scenes, and I said, what's wrong with me? Well, that violence had to come out somewhere. First of all, without the Second World War, my American father would never have come to Europe to meet my French mother. That's to say that without that war, I would not have been born. And I was born in Texas, a state where the weather is far too hot for me. And I was fighting these conditions, not able to keep the food even inside me or the milk. Of course, my parents told me later on that I didn't smell good at all during the first year of my life. I kept throwing up. Then there was this fight between speaking French or English. My mother spoke French to us, my father spoke American. Then we came to France, I had to learn French again. A constant fight. So when we returned to France, I was 5 years old then. I spoke French again, learned it, spoke it, went to school with French. And I really resented, I think you say like that, my father's attempts to have my brother and myself speak English too. A conflict rose against my mother, who yelled when she got mad at us. And surprisingly enough, she spoke English when she did. My father used his belt when we didn't behave as we should have. Violence was there too. I even remember how I used to pinch my younger brother. He was the only one I could have control over, so I pinched him. As I grew up, I became more and more independent. And there was this war within myself against everything that was my enemy. My parents' low income, the communist little girl who slapped me in the face because I was the American girl. That was at school. I didn't do anything. She just came to me and slapped me in the face. I was in conflict also against other girls because they were more charming and looked older than I did. In the village, there were no friends of my age, and I went to school in a city a bit further. And my parents also, I fought them a lot because I wanted to read everything I could get my eyes upon. And of course, they didn't want me to read books with sex. The list of all this is endless. When I went back to Texas, that was in 1969, I felt as a foreigner. I had wished to know the country where I was born, but of course it didn't fulfill my expectations, so I got angry once more. One angel of peace still came up with when my Japanese aunt welcomed me at her home while I was studying in Houston University. I met a black man once, and of course my parents drove 200 miles to tell me this was forbidden. As I was very stubborn, I decided I'd work to pay for my rent and expenses, once more fighting against the rules. To make the long story short, I'll add that I got married at 22, but lost interest for my husband shortly after our wedding. We came to France in 1975, where I met another man. I had found some work here too, and I got a divorce from my first husband, which upset my father so much he didn't want to have any relationship with me anymore. And this lasted during more than 2 years, although I was mother of a baby. So it was only when my little boy was 2 years old that he accepted to see me again. I understood later only how worried and sad he was. The next gift of peace was that the birth of my son, as I said, but matters didn't improve with my second husband. He drank, he smoked too much, he played cards for money when we already were short financially. Of course, I was mad against him too. 25 years later, he became sick with cancer. The fight against the disease was lost, and the only seed of peace I could sow was the love I kept for him until he died after 3 months of useless treatments. At that time, my son was grown up, he was about 25. and he had already gone to Germany for his studies, so I remained by myself here. Grief and solitude were feelings I couldn't throw away. I had to live with them and consider what could bring me peace of mind and peace in the heart. I had already joined an inner life school, and there I had learned how to express the love I had for my husband. As I said, I stayed with him until the end. In this inner life school, we had regular meetings to stay still and quiet. That was every week, at least 1 hour, and then 1 hour questions, answers. We had practices to connect with our heart, to raise our consciousness. I had already practiced and taught yoga for years, and this also brought peace to me and people I was teaching. A few months after my son's father's death, I met my third husband, and finally led a path blooming with the flowers of peace. Since my previous experiences and my meditation practice, both encouraged me to find peace in myself in order for it to occur with others and with whatever happened in my life. Michel, my husband now, with whom have lived for 23 years, he often fusses or complains. I remain peaceful. I go on teaching quite a few people how to look for peace inside first. It's a rewarding experience, especially when they say how much this has changed their character, their mood, and their relationships with others. They find it makes a lot of difference and that peace is in their lives. Even aging, about graceful aging, even aging is not such a worry. I found out there is a lot to gain inside when we lose things on the outside. And the greatest gifts are peace and freedom. So that was the war and peace in my life. I'll come up now with quotations from a book, quotes from a book from Etty Hillesum. I know Jill heard about her. Some of you might too. If you didn't, I strongly encourage you to look. Etty is spelled E-T-T-Y, her first name, and Hillesum is H-I-L-L-E-S-U-M, Etty Hillesum. She's a Jewish girl who died at the age of 29 in Auschwitz camp, the famous camp. But she left a lot of precious advices to inspire us for the sake of peace. You could say she was in the worst conditions to live in peace. So I have 3 quotes. Try to make it to the end. First one. Ultimately, we have just one moral duty: to reclaim large areas of peace in ourselves, more and more peace, and to reflect it towards others. And the more peace there is in us, the more peace there will also be in our troubled world. I repeat that. And the more peace there is in us, the more peace there will also be in our troubled world. It was troubled at the time, it still is troubled, but we still have to get that peace inside if we want it to go outward. Second quote on peace: give your sorrow all the space and shelter in yourself that is its due. For if everyone bears grief honestly and courageously, the sorrow that now fills the world will abate. But If you do instead reserve most of the space inside you for hatred and thoughts of revenge, from which new sorrows will be born for others, then sorrow will never cease in this world. And if you have given sorrow the space it demands, then you may truly say, life is beautiful and so rich. The last one, a bit longer. All disaster stems from us. Why is there a war? Perhaps because now and then I might be inclined to snap at my neighbor. Because I and my neighbor and everyone else do not have enough love. Yet, we could fight war with all its excrescences by releasing each day the love that is shackled inside us and giving it a chance to live. And I believe that I will never be able to hate any human being for his so-called wickedness, that I shall only hate the evil that is within me, though hate is perhaps putting it too strongly even then. In any case, we cannot be lax enough in what we demand of others and strict enough in what we demand of ourselves. A little exercise that I suggest you can do when you start the meditation part is has to do with your hands. If your hands are clenched into a fist, you feel like fighting somebody, and you have a hard time to say words of peace, words of love. If you open your hands, you have a hard time to be angry at somebody or yell or be in a conflict because you open your hands. They are kind of a reflection of how we feel inside. So you can try that. Can I say words of love with my fist closed? Could I really be angry with open hands? You might just try that if you wish, of course.